program in general.
Mhm.
Can we talk about that, or do you have more on the certifications you want to mention?
I didn't have anything else on certifications unless folks had questions, but happy to get into the status report if you've got questions about that.
All right, great. Well, I appreciate the status report. It was interesting reading. One of the main points that I took away from it was that the $10,000 threshold for a single project seemed problematic to you all.
Yes.
Because a lot of projects that could result in consumer fraud were below that threshold.
Correct.
So that leads me to wonder whether changing that. I think OPR submits a bill every year or nearly every year about with sort of routine updates to various rules that you all handle and professions that you all regulate. Is this going to be something that you're going to include in your bill this year? Do you know?
I don't know that. Yeah. I don't know that.
Okay. Right. Well, I suppose we'll be talking about that in the future. So,
Sure.
okay, good. That's all I have for right now. Thanks.
Okay.
Because it is a statutory threshold, correct?
It
Yes,
is.
It is a statutory threshold.
Peter?
Yes. So my understanding, Jennifer, was that, the fraud that occurred in that under $10,000 category was going to be considered by the Attorney General's office, the consumer fraud, division of them. And I'm wondering if they've had any reports, is there evidence of that occurring?
Do we have anybody from the Attorney General's office?
I don't know that you can respond, but what I believe that was the way it was set up to operate.
I have not touched base with them recently. We did have some meetings with them kind of once we got to going with this contractor registration. But the AG's office, they have that CAP program, which is excellent, where homeowners can kind of go there to try to mediate disputes with contractors. And certainly when we have cases where we can't, that they're under the regulatory threshold, A, and B, they're not registered with us, the contractor isn't registered with us, there really is nothing that we can do to help them, but we do refer them to the CAP program. But we haven't done any follow-up with the AG's office to kind of see, or data kind of tracking to see if they're capturing the things that we're not able to. The interesting thing too about, goals for either process with the CAP program, it's kind of a voluntary program where people are trying to come to a mediated resolution. With our program, we don't get homeowners their money back. Basically, we don't have authority to do that. What we're looking at is the registration, and do we need to discipline the registration to protect the public in the future from this practitioner? And so, we sanction that practitioner. We can take them out of, that specific marketplace. We can't keep them from being a contractor because of that $10,000 threshold. But unfortunately, getting people their money back is not something that's within our authority. So we kind of have different goals than that AG's program. And also there's there's potential criminal prosecution for contractor fraud. And I think sometimes we do kind of refer cases over to different states attorneys' offices. But again, we haven't done any data tracking to see how many cases have they taken up from that. We are seeing an uptick in complaints that we do have jurisdiction over. So I was kind of, you're never glad to see an uptick in fraud, but I'm glad to see that, our enforcement capability is actually really starting to come to fruition now that this program's been in place for, for a bit.
Could I follow up on that, or do you want to?
I have a follow, yeah, I have a
On that,
follow-up on what
okay,
she
go
just
ahead.
said. So when you mentioned the sanctions, is the
Yes.
sanction only removing from the registry, or could that include fines?
Oh, yes, it can include, first of all of our sanctions are a matter of public record. We put them on our website so that when somebody's searching for this contractor, they'll see that they've been disciplined. And those sanctions are imposed only after a duly noticed hearing where the contractor has notice and an opportunity to be heard and present witnesses. So once a contractor is disciplined, or when a contractor is disciplined, we've got anything from as little as a warning, which is basically identifying the conduct they engaged in and saying, you did this on this date and that was unprofessional conduct. Don't do it again. Anything from as light as that to a reprimand, a fine. We can suspend people from the profession. We can require coursework or training. We've required people to do things that are a little outside of the box, like reflective essay, like why did you engage in this conduct and what's the remediation that you've done? Like it's interesting in the fraud context, like what kind of education are you going to give to people about not engaging in fraud? Like fraud's an intentional action to do that. So anyway, but we can require coursework. And then the ultimate sanction, that's the worst thing we can do, is say, we're taking away that registration. You're not a registered person anymore. We would have that on our website. So even though we can't keep them out of the marketplace entirely, they could still do projects for $9,999 or $10,000, since it's over $10,000. But there would still be something on our website so that if a person in the public was like Googling that contractor, it should pop up that they've been disciplined. So it does offer a little bit of protection under that $10,000 threshold, but we can't remove them from the marketplace.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have one other really quick question. Is the prosecution for fraud, would fraud include if someone put in their contract that they will meet the residential building energy standards and then they don't, would that be considered fraud?
That's a tricky question. That's one of the things that our enforcement unit's going to be dealing with. But so it's tough. So I come from the enforcement unit. I was the chief prosecutor for several years. And, we really need to keep a bright line between fraud and quality of work. Because quality of work, as we really were hammering home in this report that we did, that's not what we're in this situation for. And really that is kind of DFS's, they're the experts in quality and codes and whatnot. But one of the tools that we do have, so we haven't had the case where someone hasn't complied with, RB standards and we're getting a complaint about that. But I would say that it's unlikely that something like that would be deemed fraud. We're really looking at fraud of, somebody who's taking money and not doing the work, or, more of that kind of nature, not did they comply with standards. Specialties are different. So now if somebody gets an Arby's specialty certificate from OPR, we do have the ability, it says we may enforce standards with certifications. So that's not anything we're grappling with yet, and that's a ways down the road. So I'll just leave that there.
So I have one other follow-up on this topic, about referring cases to state attorneys or attorney general.
Mhm.
That's another sanction, I guess. And how does OPR, or how do you think OPR will determine when to make that call?
Yeah. So we have 9 investigators. I believe 6 of them are criminal investigators, so they are certified law enforcement. All of our investigators who have been in local, state, or federal law enforcement before. So our investigators are the ones who, you know, uh, they gather all of the information, and then if it appears, the prosecutor makes the decision about, is this the kind of case that we can prosecute or isn't it? But if there is a case where we don't really have jurisdiction, but we do see that there's conduct that would rise to the level of criminal conduct, and I say we, but I'm saying our investigators, then they're typically the ones who handle that referral over to state's attorney's offices, and they have established relationships all over the state with those state's attorneys.
Okay, so, but OPR handles prosecutions yourself for matters under your jurisdiction.
Yes, but those aren't criminal prosecutions. Those are, those are regulatory administrative prosecutions, not criminal.
If there is a criminal issue, then it gets referred to a state's attorney.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thanks. I think Sandy had one question also.
Okay. Quick question on that, just before we go, sorry. When you do prosecutions, do you also levy fines or
Yes.
it's just?
Yes, and so when you look at our conduct statute, it's 3 VSA 129A, and the very last provision, it's a long statute, so I don't know the subsection off the top of my head, but it enables OPR to seek up to a $5,000 fine for each violation. And kind of the way we've interpreted that is, and the way we prosecute that is, if you do 5 or 6 things that in and of each one in and of itself could be a violation or is unprofessional conduct, then we kind of stack those right up. And we've done some cases that have had some bigger fines. And I'm not talking about in the contractor space, I'm talking about in other professions. We have not yet had a contractor case that's made its way all the way through our process through to public sanction. We haven't had that yet. We have some that are kind of along the way, but they're not there yet.
And do you enter into corrective action plans with your regulated community?
So in order to have, I don't want to say a unique feature, but one of the features of OPR's enforcement is that we really can't compel someone to do something unless we charge them with unprofessional conduct. And so once we charge them, we do enter stipulations where they can agree to, take various steps to kind of ensure that there's not a continuation or a continuing issue. They can agree to pay a fine, they can agree to engage in education and all of that. Those are a matter of public record. And then once they're disciplined, once they're sanctioned, if those sanctions include like any kind of ongoing requirements, we've had cases where we get a lot of cases in some of the healthcare professions of people like diverting or drug related cases. And so, we have people that go on alcohol and drug conditions, for example, and we have case managers who kind of act as our probation officers, and they follow people. No, they don't follow people literally, but they follow their progress through a process of doing drug testing for a period of time, or, engaging in treatment. So, that when you say a corrective action plan, that's what I think of, but we don't have cases where kind of on the side, without charging someone publicly, we say, hey, you did this thing, and we don't want to prosecute you, but we want you to enter into a corrective action plan. We don't have that for professions.
Okay, thanks so much.
Jim Bradley had his hand up and had a comment.
Okay, and Sandy's been waiting patiently. So Sandy, then Jim.
My question is about contractors who do work over $10,000 but have not chosen to register.
Mm-hmm.
And I did hear of a case recently, I think it was in Essex Junction area, where there were defects over $70,000, and they reported the case, and evidently they were, I heard this firsthand, they were told that OPR could not pursue the complaint because that contractor had not registered yet.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about a specific case or complaint, but what I can say is that when our conduct statute, which is 3 VSA 129A, in the lead-in, it says that conduct statute is to, it's for licensees or people who want licenses, people who have applied. So it pertains to current licensees or applicants. It doesn't pertain to people who are unauthorized. So we have a separate thing that we do with folks who are not registered or licensed, and they should be. Our only real enforcement mechanism there is to charge them with unauthorized practice, and that's 3 VSA 127. And so we identify that they engaged in practicing a regulated profession without the proper licensure and authority to do so. And that comes with a fine. That's the only thing that we can do to people who aren't licensed.
But
Jim.
is that through OPR, or is that process, or is that is that a criminal issue?
It can go either way. So it's sometimes prosecuted in both directions. And we work with the AG's office, does those kind of prosecutions sometimes. We have close working relationships with them, sometimes state's attorneys.
Okay, thank you. Jim Bradley?
Yes, thank you. One thing I think that we should consider as this group and how we report back to the legislature is the fact that even in this past week, I mean, I've been involved in several cases over the last several years where people have failed to comply with RVs. And just in this last week, there are 3 cases. I'm being deposed next week on one of them. Took a phone call for another one for RV's failures when they were attesting to the fact that they were meeting code, the contractor was, and the owner on a 3-year-old house found out that he did not. And there's another one I got an email on that she's going to litigation for a home that we inspected a year ago. And so we're going to be brought back in to be deposed on that as well. So I'm saying that these cases seem to be accelerating. And once again, I'm one person that has seen this, and I can only assume that there's more of this in the state. So when a consumer is placed in this position of having no other recourse but litigation, there should be something for the contractor, not to bully the contractor, but if they're testing the fact that they're being trained, that they're going to follow RVs and they don't, the only recourse that a client usually has, or a consumer, is expensive, painful litigation procedures instead of getting some type of other remedy and making sure that contractor does not repeat the problem. So I'm just saying, as far as fraud is concerned or criminal actions, I think that should still be on the table and part of our recommendations, that we say we've got to tighten this up. Otherwise, consumers are still going to be left exposed for some time to come. Just my thoughts.
And Jim, just to clarify, when you say cases, these are not OPR cases that you're involved in. These are civil cases that you're involved in, correct?
Yes, because the only exactly, Jennifer.
Yeah,
The
I just
only
wanted
recourse
to-
they have right now is to go that direction towards,
Right.
litigation and civil matter.
Thank you. Are you really on a job site, or is that just a very appropriate backdrop? Yes.
This is the lovely rock wool insulation. If you like to
I see
hug it and
that.
get all itchy, you certainly can. But yeah, it's a real job site out in Grand Isle.
I think I've seen you on television at that job site.
You have, sir. That is correct. Same one.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Jim? Okay. And Kelly, do we have anyone else with a hand up?
Nope.
Let me see. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Very
All
helpful.
right, we got through 10 minutes of that. Yeah.
Any other further committee discussion on the contractor certification front? Any other thing in the room? Right. Great, thanks for the update. Sounds like things are cooking along pretty well. Okay, great. Well, that brings us then to our fourth agenda item, status updates on charges 2 and 3 from the Act 151 legislation. And Richard, you're our lead on that part of the discussion.
Okay, so I'm going to just share my screen. My name is on a number of these items, and I'm happy to share the responsibility here if chairs or others would like to chime in. Hopefully, I'll just be guiding some of the conversation here as we move through the rest of the meeting, and there'll be lots of participation from committee members and others. So item number 4 is to just provide a quick status update and sort of give the working group an idea of our thoughts for moving through. This is our meeting number 3 of 5, and then we've got a report to the legislature. So there's not a lot of opportunity or time. I guess if the committee chooses to hold another meeting, that'll be up to further discussion. But at this point, our plan is to defer discussion on charge 2 and charge 3, which I'll read here in just a second, to the next meeting. We thought it'd be best if Michael DeRochers was in the room in person. So because both of those charges really specifically address the Division of Fire Safety, we thought that would be the best approach moving forward, and that we really would focus on charge number 1 today. So just as a reminder, charge 2 is develop plans and recommendations for a potential transition to a comprehensive program for the RVs and CVs at the Division of Fire Safety, including potential funding sources. So, and then charge 3 is consider whether or not the state should adopt a statewide building code. So having those discussions and recognizing the fact that charge number 3 from Mike's report last meeting, that he's already begun a sort of parallel effort to talk about, and he mentioned it this morning, adopting the IRC. Those felt like be better handled at the next meeting. So if that makes sense to everybody, that would be the plan. Kelly?
I think I put something in the email on charge number 3 that we can consider it at the next meeting, but just to verbalize it, that maybe pushing charge 3 into next year, saying how this is a 2-year working group, to give DFS the time to complete their working group on whether to adopt a statewide building code, instead of addressing that at all in this particular report. Because it seems like, I think they've had 1 meeting. It seems like it's going to take some time to work through.
It may be premature.
Address it. Yeah. And Mike's on, so maybe he has something further to say about that.
No, I appreciate that. I was going to chime in there. You know, on the surface, it sounds kind of easy, but there's actually quite a bit of review that needs to take place here. So I will be scheduling, obviously additional meetings with the IRC group. And, actually we've had some, even in our first meeting, there was some good discussion here. But we'll move through this process, and it's just something that is going to require quite a bit of assessment here before I'm in a position to pull the trigger on this. So, and there's different options that are available. So I like the group that we have. And again, if you want to be part of this discussion, just send me an email. You know, this is meant to be transparent with everybody and give everybody the opportunity to weigh in and provide feedback to me on this. So I'm very open. So just drop me an email and I'll add you to the list. Thank you.
Mike, do you have a sense of time frame for that process? Do you have some goals and timeline?
It's going to take me several months to do an assessment of this. Here are just a few of some of the points. You know, we need to define who is a design professional in the context of the IRC. We need to take a quick look at how that impacts our plan review process. We need to look at the angle of affordability. What does that do to the cost of housing? If it does impact the cost of housing, but that assessment we need to do. We also, you know, we recognize that the IRC also has their energy efficiency standards, and the IRC don't align with the rules promulgated by public service on the RBs. We have to take a look at the conflicts that exist between the IRC and the NFPA standards, because we're both an ICC and NFPA state. And, you know, look at things like, do we keep certain chapters can we adopt certain chapters of the IRC? Do we delete some of the chapters that are in the IRC? So there is a lot of conversation that is needed there. And, you know, again, you're getting into the 1 and 2 family sprinkler system requirement that's in the IRC. And then if you're, you know, talking affordability and whether the industry can handle the install of 13D sprinkler systems, then you got to look at all the trade-offs and equivalencies that are provided because you're mandated to sprinkler these buildings. Then you can use your lightweight construction and so forth. But if you can't sprinkler the building, then you're required, for example, to sheetrock the ceiling of the basement. There's just all kinds of different components in the IRC that we need to take a look at. And then most importantly, do we have a workforce out there that can actually, since building science comes up frequently, can we build to that standard, right? What is the code management perspective on how you manage that from a contractor perspective, an inspection perspective, and so forth? So there's just a lot of stuff there. But we are going to work through this.
So that, I mean, in my mind, that makes sense to push this off to next year, given all of that.
It sounds like a lot of connections and a lot of things to sort through here. I mean, a lot of implications.
Well, there is. And then, you know, I also want to, you know, there's a difference between a statewide building code and the IRC, right? So I think under the intent of the legislation, it was, well, do we, you know, and everybody here already knows my thought on extending in the single family owner occupied homes, but that was part of the charge, right? Was, do you extend inspection authority into single family owner occupied homes that currently do not exist? So, but I'll be prepared at the next meeting, sir, to dive into the weeds a little bit more on this for you.
Right.
Thanks for priming the pump with just those things. It's helpful to appreciate how much is behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I have a quick question on affordability. Do you have a defined method? You know, it's a term that we all use and it's a concern to everyone. But I'm not sure that we always use it in the same way. So do you have a defined methodology that addresses affordability? Like, I don't know, if an investment were required, use sprinklers sprinklers aren't probably a
Right.
good example. Like an energy efficiency thing, like it must have a payback period of less than X number of years in order to be quote unquote affordable or anything like that.
I think what we look at is, for example, if you're going to hire a design professional to design a project, you know, what is the fee for that design service, right? What does that look like? What does the cost of a domestic sprinkler look like? What's the impact of EV energy storage systems and that kind of stuff that are in the NFPA 855 standard now? But so all those things that have a safety component, they also have a financial impact to that particular structure. So we're looking at the big picture and saying, okay, multi-family apartment buildings, when we go to the 21 codes, there has to be grab bars in the bathrooms, for example, in all bathrooms that have a bathtub. Well, it sounds pretty basic, but you know, that's $500, $700, $800 per bathroom. So we're looking at, you know, the safety, the relevancy of the safety versus the economic impact. And then we do make common ground so that we create a level playing field the best we can without diminishing safety.
And on the safety side, is there a defined methodology for dollar value assigned to a risk? You know, like if there's a fall, here's what the consequences are in terms of income or medical or any of that. I mean, I'm just wondering, do you get to like a math equation at some point?
The model code groups between ICC and NFPA, one of the challenges facing jurisdictions that adopt and promulgate rules are financial impact statements. And so every 3 years when the codes are amended and published, many states require financial impact statements. And without those financial impact statements, the adoption of the rules get bogged down through the legislative process. And so the answer is to have these model code groups provide and work on financial impact statements every time they move to a different code cycle. And so there's work that needs to be done in that arena.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Mike. So I'll share
Yes,
the
sir.
screen again.
We're going on to number 5 here.
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll move down to number 5, unless there's anything else in number 4. So we thought we would really spend the bulk of today. We have 80 minutes. I'm not quite sure. We have to probably name a timekeeper. We can figure this out. But a chunk of time to, our thought was to go back through what the recommendations were from last year's Act 47 Building Energy Code Study Committee in order for us to consider the charge number 1 request to this group, which is to recommend strategies and programs to increase awareness of and compliance with the RBs and CBs, including the use of appropriate certifications for contractors trained on the energy codes. Well, we've heard the beginnings of the certifications from OPR this morning, but as a reminder, and Kelly had sent out in the along with this agenda and the minutes, a summary of the recommendations from last year's Act 47 working group. And our thought was that, and along with that too, a status indication. So we thought that it might be useful to walk through that list. It's on it's in a couple different formats. The executive summary of the act from last year, which this may look familiar to. We didn't go. No, I'm not sharing that one. Okay, so anyhow, the Act 47 report is on the department's website. And it has a table of these in it as well too. But our thought was we could just walk through these different recommendations and sort of brainstorm and see if there are other suggestions that we'd want to add to the list. We could do this a couple ways. We could either go through one each item at a time, which is our thinking. But I'm considering here too is if are there some other sort of big picture or other recommendations that we missed that we'd want to consider in addition to what's here? But maybe, so I don't know if we want to sort of start open the table, but we were thinking that we could just walk through these and provide sort of a reminder of what we said and where we are with each of these, and then provide an opportunity to chime in with additional recommendations. So should we proceed and just walk through the list? So let's do that.
Thank you, Kelly, for bringing together the short version that helps us to follow along. Yeah, it's very
Yeah, there are some subsections to some of these, but I want to keep it as brief as possible.
Okay. So A1, designate the DFS as statewide authority having jurisdictions, overall building construction. So this is one we're going to kick to next.
That's the
We're
thing.
not going to spend. So let's focus on our charge, which is increased compliance with RVs and CVs. The second one, which we can check off as complete, is amend the energy code update cycle by changing shall in the energy code enabling statute to may. So that was actually done as part of Act 151, and so that is actually in place currently. I'm going to keep going unless somebody wants to chime in along the way and raise your hand or speak up in the room here. A3, establish a study committee on adopting a statewide residential building code. Well, that's in progress. We heard about that, and Mike is working on that through the DFS IRC group.
And that's pushed to next year.
That's pushed to next year. Thank you, Peter. Yes. A4, require OPR to update contractor registry. So contractors explicitly acknowledge RBCB's legal requirements. And that's marked as complete.
Yeah, that was included in the legislation, so that's part of it. But yeah, you can read the next one, and I put what I put what I heard OPR say when they were testifying on this, but Jennifer can.
Okay.
speak to
Yeah.
that.
Okay. And let me just finish reading it, and then we'll
Yeah.
turn things
Okay.
over to you, Jennifer. So require OPR to update the registry so contractors explicitly acknowledge RBCB's legal requirements, and B, to alert consumers to RBCBs and provide filtering functionality, for example, by specialties, locations, and certifications. So Jennifer, did you want to say something to that?
Well, I did want to say something. That charge is a bit curious to me because we regulate residential contractors, and Sandy and I recently had an exchange about this. We do have on our website that compliance with RBs and CBs is required, and when I came into the general counsel space, I thought, that's curious because we regulate residential contractors, not commercial. So I was actually, I'm interested to see this too, because after communicating with Sandy about this, I was like, oh, we need to change our website to take out references of CDs. But it seems like there's a little more work that I need to do to better understand why we're referencing CBs there. But it seems, it doesn't seem like it should be on there, but there's probably a lot of background that I don't understand about that.
Can I ask how you're defining residential? Does that include multifamily?
I believe in our definitions, hang on, actually, I have that right in front of me. Let me get that. I believe it's 3 or less.
3 units or less?
Yes.
Yes, but hold up. Okay. Apologies. Okay. Oh, excuse me. It says this is in 26 VSA 5501B. Residential construction means to build, demolish, etc. A residential dwelling unit or a building or premises with 4 or fewer residential dwelling units. So it's
Just a comment that is, Fannie Freddie underwriting, 1 to 4 units is considered residential. And more than that is multi-use. So it matches with financing requirements.
Yeah,
okay.
that's why I was trying to see where it fit in the definitions of RBs and CBs, which you wouldn't have a 4-unit that's more than 4, that's over 3 stories. So I think it would not hit CBs.
So I'll do a
Is it
little.
all this stories?
Yeah.
4
I'll do-
plus. Yeah.
It's commercial.
Yes.
I'm gonna do a little more work on that piece of it, and maybe next time we meet, we can have further discussion about OPRs, what we're having on our website and what we need to say, if anything, about CDs.
Is that Matt?
Sharp.
Yeah,
Matt Sharp?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to point out that there definitely are buildings that are 4 units or less. I guess I should say premises that are 4 units or less that have commercial properties perhaps underneath them or as part of their structure. So I'm not sure how that fits into all this thinking, but just pointing that out.
Architect over here.
We actually just sent a chart this morning to Richard that's been finalized by Keith Ellison and fire safety. And if there's any part of the building that is rented or mixed use, it is a public building. It falls under the commercial jurisdiction that I think, as far as I understand it, a building cannot have commercial use and be in the parties code. It would be less commercial.
Right.
If it's rented, that's different. There could be a 4-family building that has rentals in it. But if there's any mixed use, it's a commercial.
So can someone?
Revisit this.
Yeah, I don't want to bog it, but I realized I didn't quite appreciate it, stories versus unit counts and stuff before, or mixed.
Yeah, if it's mixed use, it goes under CBs. That's true. So if there's 4 units, like she said, over a business, then I could see how
Then it becomes commercial.
it's commercial.
The chart that I referenced that Richard has includes the breakdown of stories.
Thank you.
Okay.
Kelly, is that a change in the 2024 code? Because it used to be that any residential portion of a building was the Arby's code applied, even though TFS might have jurisdiction over it as a building.
That's correct, Matt.
Correct,
The
being it changed.
provisions of RVs apply to the residential portions of the building.
Right, so the
but
building could be
DFS
under
is
DFS
affected.
jurisdiction, whether it's a
Yes.
rental or mixed use, but the code, the energy code that applies is the RB's code to the residential portion and the CB's code to the commercial portion.
Correct.
I mean, it does seem that the,
If it's less.
commercial shouldn't be part of what the OPR is registering.
It's mixed use.
That's not what they were charging.
But on the other hand, a builder is going to be building the whole building.
Mhm.
And so would
More
be,
than 4 stories is
be-
CBs.
and so would be required to.
If it has commercial space.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was responding to Peter, just, a builder would be building the whole building and so would be required to comply with CBs in the commercial part of the building. So maybe that means that this is a moot point. Anyway.
Okay. Yes.
And Richard, will that go on our website? Can that get distributed? The chart that you were just.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let me go back to recommendations. Okay, not sharing.
It's the one from this morning, Richard.
Yeah, no, I did have that. Okay. Okay. And so anything else, require OPR, alert consumers. So so I don't know if there's anything else, alert. There's this filtering functionality that is, that we had quite a bit of discussion about, some website
Right.
enhancements last year. No, Scott, you had some thoughts
Yeah,
about that.
And I don't know if this is the place to talk about it, but it is something that I think needs resolution. It's one thing to have this information, it's another thing to have it accessible to the public. And so we've got to figure out how to do that. And the public that uses the internet has come to expect, I think, a certain level of functionality in a website and being able to look up information and filter lists by certain criteria. So for example, where a contractor, what a contractor's service area is, what specialties the contractor performs services in, when they have certifications, what certifications a contractor has, those kinds of things would certainly be useful to a consumer, but a consumer-facing website, OPR has said is not within their normal scope. So we have to figure out how to do that somehow. But that's a larger topic and maybe something that we'll put in the report ultimately for.
It's beyond the scope of this, and Jennifer had something to say to this.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to point out that we do on our website have a really nice map feature that shows the state, and you can look anywhere in the state and it has a bunch of dots on it, and you can kind of zoom in and figure out what contractors are working where, or registered contractors, and also kind of specialties that they self-identify when they're registering with us. So we've got a list, and people will be able to do that. I don't know the functionality of how the list translates to the map, although I would guess there could be some relationship there. And then certainly as we move forward with implementing certifications, that can be part of the discussion too.
Can you hear me? We just lost connection in the room. Up, just came back.
I got it back.
I mute myself.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did y'all miss part of what I said?
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. I like that I was just making a lot of hand motions and stuff, though. That's
I need
great.
to Go back like 49 seconds.
Okay, I'll do that.
Is your mic?
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. So what I was saying is, we have this map. We've developed a list of trades that when people register as residential contractors with our office, they can identify what specialties they're involved in within residential construction. And then, kind of as we move forward with developing certifications, trying to come up with some functionality between certification and that map. You know, I think the map may have a link to where you can get more information about the person, and certainly a certification would show on that. But I'll put that on our list as well as we're looking at doing more work with certifications.
Oh, that leads me to a question, Jennifer. If you can pull up information, let's say if you're hovering over a dot on the map, and that pulls up information, detail about that contractor, the name and certain.
Oh, now.
Did we lose the room?
I think we did.
Jennifer, while we wait for the room to come back, can you tell me
Sure.
where to find that map on your website? I've been
Actually,
looking
I
since you
was-
started talking about it and
Yes,
I
I'll
can't
put
find it.
I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
I was just looking at that and was going to share it if people wanted to see it.
When I go to find a professional,
It's under our homeowner resources page in residential contractors.
maybe I'm Napoleon's corporal in this scenario, but when I go to find a professional, is it listed under there anywhere? Because I don't see contractor or builder or any of those things that.
Let's look. Should be there. Find a professional. All right.
Contractor locator, OPR's Find a Professional. It's down on that page, I believe.
So when you go to find a professional, you can select profession and it's under residential contractor. So it's at the bottom under R. And that residential contractor piece was something that the legislature was very wanting to make sure we were using the term residential contractor and not just contractor, which is why it's further down on the list than you might think.
Gotcha.
It
Thank
looks
you.
like if you filter by residential contractor, you can only get a downloaded list. Do you get the map? Can you filter the map?
The map isn't, I don't think the map is kind of connected to this. This is our licensing platform and the map is not connected with that. So, but when you go to the map, so in other words, right, I guess what you're saying is you'd have to go to the map to a certain area and see like, oh, this contractor's in that area, and then go look them up in the Find a Professional.
Right. Yeah. Or you could just download the whole list and sort, but there's no specialties listed in the list that you download.
Not yet,
Yeah,
but
not
we've
yet.
got, yeah, that's coming.
Gotcha.
I would say as a contractor, this doesn't seem to. We're making progress here, but this wouldn't be something I would pay for my marketing to go to because it's awfully hard to find.
Yeah, because our agency regulates 80 I mean, 50 something professions. You know, our website, I don't want to say we have challenges, but there's a lot that we have to have on there. So I can totally appreciate that.
Did we get the room back yet?
Okay.
Jennifer, this is Mike. I like I mean, we always go on and like check, engineer or licensing individual. That whole system that you have there works real nice for us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad it's helpful. It can be a little bit challenging for people who aren't as familiar with our website, but with so many professions, there's only so much we can do with that. But I think that map for contractors is a feature that that we really like, and we hope that consumers will use.
So some of us are back on. Let's see, should I turn off my mic?
We seem to have lost the main event though.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna turn my mic and speakers on for the room. So can others online hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, the room is not connected, so we'll just have to do it on our individual laptops, and I'll just use mine as the microphone and speakers. So, well, so shall we keep going so I don't lose too much time here? So so I will share my screen again and get back onto
You want me to
the
share that, Richard, so you can see the chat and whatnot?
I can look at the chat.
Yeah, okay, let's see. I just got dropped, I think. Can others see my screen?
We can see your screen. It's got your initials on it.
We can hear you.
We can't see if you're sharing your screen. We can't see what you're sharing.
Yeah, I wanted to share a second. Okay, sorry. Okay, there. Can you see that now?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Okay, so it sounds to me like Jennifer, you're working on you've got some functionality for consumers. It's something you're aware of, and it's sort of a work in progress. So I don't know if there's anything else to add at this point in time to the OPR website.
I don't think so at this
April?
point. I did put a link in the chat so that you can see the map that we have on our website and how that works and how you can zoom in and like locate contractors. So if anybody wants to connect with me about that, happy to have your thoughts.
Great. Andrew, did you want to add something?
Yeah, Andrew Brewer. Yes, I say this carefully. It's difficult. That map and finding a contractor is cumbersome. It's not terribly user friendly. I think people are finding. This is just feedback we're hearing from the builders and and as Scott pointed out, any way to be able to sort it better, to zero in on a roofer, or some sort of oral disciplines would be terrific. The map, you can zero in on your town and you see those little dots, and you can click on one of them and a name will pop up of a contractor, but without any further than that. The search function, if you dispel something, if you're looking for a specific contractor, you have to enter their license number or their first name necessary or their business. And I'm just afraid it's cumbersome, I think, so it could use some work.
It's also hard just to find my link. If you're a consumer, you get on OPR's, you learn that it's on OPR's website. You start to look for it on OPR's website. Even if you know it's there, it's hard. If you're given a link, that's one thing, but it's really hard to find the web page.
Well, so yeah, I think we're back. So there's some suggestions, Jennifer. Sounds like it's a work in progress, and maybe we capture, you know, it's never going to be perfect out of the gate, and so here's some suggestions.
Exactly.
Kelly?
Thank you.
Jennifer, I wonder if it would be helpful, like, I know it wasn't you testifying, but I heard some very specific things when OPR testified about what was beyond the scope of the registry. And I wonder if you could kind of do a list of things that maybe would be within your domain, although I also heard that you guys had already spent more than what you had budgeted for this. So I don't know how much capacity, but it might just be good for outside of a conversation right now to understand kind of what you see within the scope and things maybe you could change and fix and what things would be beyond. So everyone has an understanding of that.
That'd be helpful. And yeah.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I was trying to ask this question before when we lost connection. So I'm looking at the map now, and I see that when you click on a dot, you do get information about the contractor. Is it possible to add to that information
Specialties.
the things that other things that we've talked about? Service territory, specialties. I'm looking at one particular contractor and it says specialty and it gives a date rather than a specialty. So anyway, just adding more information to the what's available on the map seems like that would be a good start if that's not that too hard to do.
And being able to sort, I mean, a filter by location and specialty. If you're looking for a roofer in your zip code or, you know, nearby, I mean, that would be a useful functionality to have, I would think.
If you could filter the map, right, that would be.
Right.
And maybe we're getting the networks to get in.
Yeah, so we're not gonna design your website here, but here's a list of some elements that might help consumers navigate it.
Right.
Jennifer, I have a quick question. That is just, you know, so I've looked at the map before and now, you know, the mixed blessing is that we're getting more and more people registered, but then the map becomes very densely dotted, you know, so it gets a little tricky. Do you have other ways of displaying this that's already built into the software you have? Like, you know, can I see the contractors in Chittenden County or Washington County? Or is this like your standard program? And if we want to look at it another way, that's really like another whole programming task.
Mhm. Well, there is a zoom feature on the map too. So if you want to look at a specific area, you can zoom in. So I get it seems very cumbersome when you're first looking at it. I also agree with the functionality. Like I hope and I think we're intending to get specialties on there. So if you identify yourself as a carpenter or a tile installer or whatever, like that will be identified there. In terms of our licensing platform, you know, that's designed to serve 51 professions, and contractors are kind of unique because you're looking for someone with a specialty in a particular geographic area, and that's very unique, I think, in the contractor profession. So our licensing platform, from what I know, is not designed so that you can search not only by profession, but also by geographic location. I don't think that that's part of our platform.
I would offer, though, that you can download the list and do all sorts of filtering with Excel, but that's a different skill level and investment of time.
That's right. So just for your average user, that would probably be challenging, but right, for those of us who love to work in spreadsheets and can filter a little bit easier.
Okay, so the platform that we're looking at, that's a general licensing platform you have. It's not, it wasn't constructed just for Arby's certification.
No.
Is that right?
Correct. So we have our licensing platform, and I don't know that I've sent you that, but that's a way that you can look up professionals in any profession. The map that we have is unique to residential contractors, and that was a feature of kind of or part of the package for residential contractors. We don't have that in any other profession.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just thinking maybe in the report that comes out of here, we could have some, we could capture some of these suggestions and just so that there's a repository of elements that would make this more user-friendly. And, in the drafting process, everybody will have a chance to chime in, and there may be some other suggestions as well too that could be added.
Yeah, and I think it'd be helpful if, again, Jennifer could say kind of what's doable, what might cause to need more funding.
Yeah, maybe there's a table there that's, included in the package, could be worked.
Be fair to OPR.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Andrew?
One other comment, under the banner of encouraging more compliance. There is quite a bit of confusion with contractors of whether they're being licensed or not. And so, Jen, as much as possible, the word license should be eradicated from the contractor registry. And I'm trying to confirm this. I'm not a contractor, so I haven't registered myself, but I believe when you register, what you get back has the word license on it. And that's causing it. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's across all professions. So generally speaking, we use the word license, but we have 3 subcategories. One is a license, one is a certification, one is a registration. Our licensing,
It's a license registry.
that's our licensing platform. And so that's not something that when people like those applications, irrespective of what you're applying for, it might say, it's going to have the word license on it. Like that's, I can tell you that that would be really hard for us to get rid of.
Is there a way to put an asterisk to say you're not really licensed?
Or license type registration.
Right.
That might be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well,
But that
we'll
could-
add that to our list of suggestions perhaps.
Yeah, that's a good catch, though. Okay. In the interest of time, I'm going to suggest we move on and others can add to this as other ideas come up. Okay. We okay with that? Yeah, okay. So A5 from Act 47, authorize OPR to update their contract requirements and template for contractor owner agreements to include a clause acknowledging that the energy codes are mandatory. And we have that marked as complete. I just want to confirm that that's the case. Is that?
That was in the act.
But has that been done? So the authorization has been done. Have the contracts and the templates been updated to that?
We have one template on our website for a contract, and there's a provision that says the contractor acknowledges that they have to comply with RBs and CBs. So that's something, again, that not to get back to that, but that's something that may need further looking into. We also have in multiple places on our website that RBs compliance is required.
Right. Sandy?
For clarification to the actual statutory language that was carefully read off. Basically, it says the contract language should say that the project complies with RBs. No, so that's basically giving both the homeowner and the contracting person the contract responsibility. And what ended up in the contract template that's on the OPR website is not the same language. So the BBRA's written a letter asking if that could possibly align with what actually is the statute.
Has there been any response to that letter? Is it being considered at this point in time?
Jennifer did.
Yeah, Jennifer did acknowledge receipt.
And.
Yep, and
Yeah. Makes sense.
yeah, we're talking about it internally, and of course, I'm in touch with Sandy about that. It seems like I need to, because I wasn't in the space before, better understand. I understand Sandy's perspective is that was negotiated language. I just need to figure that out, like what was the negotiated language, and better understand that, because we just saw a minute ago that there was RBs and CBs alert, about it. So I just need to better understand that. But yes, it's on my list.
Work in progress. Okay.
Mhm.
Great. So, anything else on A5? A6, develop certification designation for contractors trained in the energy codes and include certification on the OPR contractor registry and DFS website. So we heard that this is in progress at OPR. I'm not clear where the DFS website piece of this would come into play. Is there sort of cross-reference, or how would,
Yeah, this is Mike. Yeah, we can work that out. I mean, that's just sharing information.
Yep.
So I don't have any issue working with OPR, and as we move through this, we can certainly share information or put the link on whatever it is. We'll work with you on that.
Great. Okay. Okay, the next bucket of suggestions, B, improve the process for filing and tracking energy code certificates. So this is probably a big one. I know we spent a bunch of time last year on this, and I know, Mike, it sounds like DFS is in the process of expanding or building out your database. This one specifically asked to expand DFS's current database redesign to incorporate a statewide, central, publicly accessible repository for all Vermont buildings, including all residential, that includes energy code data. We don't have a status on this one, but are you able to give us a little update on where this project is at DFS and whether this might fit into the work that you're doing?
Yeah, thank you, sir. We have not signed our IT contract yet, but we are anticipating signing this hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks. What I'd start out by saying is that as the law is written right now, and again, I'll apply this to the buildings that we have jurisdiction over, there's already statutory requirements that require RBs and CB certification certificates to be posted on site at buildings. Does not apply to existing buildings, but any new construction, it is mandated. And in fact, in all our permits that we issue, there are statements that are in our permit that require that certificate to be posted at the site. The kind of the issue we run into there is we have a lot of phased in construction projects, and so to be transparent with everybody, we lose sight of this throughout those phased in projects, and there's a lot of them, right? We allow occupancy of 4 units while the other 4 are being done in all the mixed use buildings. So it's kind of hard to monitor that. So I kind of like the concept of if we could electronify this, if that's a word. I would be in support of that. There's already a requirement to post it. So let me put, you could mark this in progress. I will discuss this at our next IT meeting, which will be next Thursday. And maybe I can give an update at the next meeting where we can go. But one of the enhancements with our new platform at the end of the day will be making our system much more transparent for the public. So that meaning tenants, landlords, you'll be able to go on and see inspection reports and that stuff in a read-only type of format with any type of redaction type information will be taken care of on the back end. So we're hoping that, you know, if you have a project on 12 Main Street in whatever community, you'll be able to go into our search engine on this new software and it's going to pull up the inspection reports and that kind of stuff. And there'll be the ability to print files that are there for transparency. So I think this could be worked out on the private sector side of it that we have no jurisdiction over. I'm not quite sure what that would look like. But I can have a conversation with our IT folks and look into this.
Well, that sounds like great progress, Mike, I would say. I mean, if we can at least get to a point where all of the buildings that you currently have jurisdiction over are covered here, that feels like that's a huge step in, you know, in the direction of where we're trying to go with this.
Yeah, I mean, somebody could just submit to us a PDF of the certificate in PDF, and then we would just link it to the site.
Yeah, I mean, if that were the case, that, you know, I'm sure it would help the town clerks and the title search folks and everybody else if that was publicly accessible. That information. Zach, did you?
Yeah, just one consideration, Mike, for your IT conversation is like in terms of RBs and CBs certificates, just as like read-only PDFs, I don't think there's nearly as much value as if the information on those certificates is extracted into a database that's accessible and you can sort of analyze bulk certificate data. And so maybe there's a path to like making these editable PDFs that are submitted that way and the fields are drawn into a database as opposed to just like screen grabs of certificates, which would require manual transcription to then analyze in a meaningful way.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm not an IT savvy person, but certainly we wouldn't do anything like this without input from stakeholder groups on this. And we would want it to be very functional.
Well, maybe that would be a great outcome if you're willing to provide some stakeholder input into this process at, you know, key junctures along the way, make sure that you know we've covered all the bases and there's some suggestions that could help track these things and improve the database. I think that would be welcome.
Yeah. You know, I don't know what what the group thinks, whether you need a statutory change to, if you're gonna submit this stuff electronically, whether we do away with the actual certificate that is being posted wherever it is being posted now, whether you accept the electronic copy and you have a place in our database where you can extract that information, or we keep the statute the way it's written here and then we use the electronic process as just something that makes it more accessible to people and more transparent.
Sandy?
Last year, Architects and Builders Working suggested that there could be a pull-out screen on a construction building permit or some other process in the database to actually upload the CB's information or RB's information is part of the building permit. That would, like a fillable form, that would give Zach what he's talking about. And then as the project's being closed out, whoever uploaded it could certify that the project met the requirements, and poof, a certificate would be created by the database. And then it's all there.
I think the current certificate now, and I haven't looked at it in quite some time, is pretty general in nature, right? It provides an area for the design professional to basically validate that this project's been in compliance with the RBs and CBs. I think it's a one-page type certificate, but Sandy, maybe you know more about it than I do here.
Kelly?
I'll have to double check, and I don't know if Keith knows, but I know at least for RVs, we're working on incorporating the certificate into ResCheck. And if we're doing the same with ComCheck, then, and that's the really the only compliance path you can take in CBs is use ComCheck, then that would be redundant if it's going to be already created in ComCheck. So we'll double check on that.
Yeah.
But the publicly accessible database tied to the property. So what's, I'm not clear what's.
So Sandy was talking about having the CB's, fillable CB certificate in the permit, but it may already be happening through ComCheck, so that would be repetitive. So we'll double check on that.
There's a way to link the two or something as well.
You wouldn't want people to have to fill it out.
No, I don't want to have people.
Correct.
Well, this, I personally, I think this sounds like great progress, Mike, and if you're open to some stakeholder input in the process, I'm sure there would be some interest in that.
Yeah, I'll speak, Kelly, we can catch up offline on that if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Thanks.
Do you want to bring up your?
Yeah, so usually we try to schedule a break just so that people, but we lost a fair amount of tech time this morning. So I just tell people if you need a break, step out and the meeting will keep rolling along.
Okay, and we're here till 12, right?
Yes.
So just the agenda check. What do we have after we have?
We had
Comment.
said that's, yes, 6, we said we could move if, and not go to it.
Right, yeah, and then public comment, we want to make sure we leave some time at the end for public comments. Okay. I'll try to keep us moving. So I feel like that's a great progress on that last one. So thanks, Mike, for working with us on that. I'm going to move to improve training and support, and hopefully we'll be moving through this because I feel like there's some good progress just out there. I don't know, Zach, so that I'm not talking the whole time. Do you feel like you want to just
Sure.
give an update on where?
Yeah, I mean, at least on these first few, under item C, improve workforce training and support. So a lot of these are at least partially covered by activities that are being undertaken under the DOE Recce grant that EFG is leading. So coordinate and support energy code trainings and certifications. So with respect to the trainings, Efficiency Vermont is part of the DOE team. So we've developed a list of trainings for next year with respect to RBs. They also did a bunch of training activity earlier this year in preparation for the release of the 2024 RBs. We're also working with VAPTA on.
Well, just that they're all recorded too, and
They are.
up on the Efficiency Vermont website. So they're available for people to continue to view.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's some ongoing discussion about how to make that, or I guess let market actors know that information is available on an ongoing basis. And we're working with VAPTA also on municipal outreach, education and awareness materials with respect to the energy code. And then we obviously touched on certifications already. One of those is planned to be an RB's specific certification that we're working with the International Code Council through the DOE grant to sort of stand up that certification program as something that OPR could reference. Yes. okay.
Quick question on the energy code trainings that are being provided. Is that, are builders or architects able to get continuing education credits through those trainings?
Yes, Efficiency Vermont has arranged for continuing education credits. There, we have 10 trainings as part of the DOE grant and coordination with Efficiency Vermont, 7 of which have already been developed and given since, 6, okay, yeah, 6. And there are recordings of, if somebody wants to watch those. We will be developing the additional 4 trainings. But the existing ones, I believe most of them that are relevant have BPI or AIA continuing education
I
credits.
don't know if they all do.
I don't think
At least
so, but many of them do, you know.
Thanks.
So I'm curious about certifications and thinking about the OPR site that says, you know, somebody has an RV certification. Is that going to be like a variety of different independent certifications that are done, or is there going to be one standard certification that says you meet RV certification?
There is no current certification of RV's aptitude and knowledge.
Gotcha.
So as Zach mentioned, we'll be developing that with the International Codes Council, and there'll be one RV's certification. I know there are a number of stakeholders that have put forward proposals to OPR to have sort of advanced levels of certifications for building science and construction, some other things. But for RVs, this would be, right now, we're just looking at a basic RV's certification.
And that would be the certificate. If you had that, that's what would show up in the OPR.
Exactly. We're coordinating with them on that.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And is sort of a basic and advanced model for the various certifications, what's being considered?
For RVs, no, it's a basic certification.
Okay.
I mean, we haven't engaged yet with ICC. It's taken a long time to get the contract in place, and they're very particular about intellectual property, which I understand. So we've worked that out with DOE and the lawyers at ICC, and we'll be borrowing. Graciously, ICC is lending us their questions they develop for other states that are germane and relevant, and then we'll be customizing it for Vermont, for RVs, because we are a little different than the code trainings and tests elsewhere.
You mentioned there were a bunch of 7 or something certifications you're working on?
No, training.
Oh, training.
Training modules, yeah.
Training. Okay. So is RVs the only certification? Or are there?
There's a building science. We heard Jennifer mention a building science one as well too. So one of the trainings that's on the list that we'll be developing with EBT is on building science. And it will be the new handbook, the new RV's handbook that's about to come out, has a new chapter on moisture management and building science. And so there'll be a training focused on that as well. But there are a number of other organizations in the state that have building science training courses that already exist.
Michael
Right,
DeRocha has those linked up.
But I guess what I'm wondering is about the certifications. Basic and advanced building science certification, or is that even?
No, that's on the table. That's
TBD is sort of my understanding.
right. Yeah, there's a discussion about a basic building science, but then there's a number of advanced certifications as well that are being proposed to OPR. Ultimately, OPR is sort of driving the certifications.
Good, thanks.
Mike?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious, the certification classes or educational classes, will there be incentives through any of these grants to offset the cost, or are there, I'm just curious what the cost is that are going to be imposed onto these individuals that take these classes. I'm just curious if there's been any thought on it.
But my understanding, Matt Sharp can speak to this, but my understanding is that they've all been free up to.
The training.
The trainings have been, right?
Yeah.
The certifications will likely, there are costs to the certifications. If depending on where OPR goes. For the building science one, there's likely a cost for the certification for that. Right now, the Building Performance Institute has there's a cost for the training manual and a cost to take the test. It's a couple $100. I don't know exactly what it is. For RBs, and in talking to ICC, they'll be managing the RB certification. It's $200 to $300 for that right now, where there's a possibility that there are grants that can offset that, and that the efficiency utilities could potentially offset that for people who take the courses and meet the standards. So this is a work in progress. We know that there are costs, but there are also possibly grants and incentives that could be made available through the utilities and the department's DOE grants and others.
Thank you, sir.
So Richard, is your sense that the online training will be sufficient to, sort of a working carpenter to come fully up to speed on what they need to do to meet the RBs? Or do you also think there's going to be some hands-on in-person work, blended the two?
For RBs?
For RBs, yeah. I'm just thinking,
Specifically.
yeah, well, I'm thinking of the difficulty of getting people to stop earning pay on a job site and go someplace for training, unless their employer is going to pay them, regardless of whether they're building that day or off at training that day. But it seems like a lot of folks on the smaller side don't really get that kind of support. Pay to go train support.
TBD, but my sense is that people could probably get all the knowledge they need through the online trainings.
For the purposes of becoming certified and passing the exam, I would say that's consistent with most certifications within the building science industry anyway. And maybe as you became more advanced, like if there become more advanced options, that might be one of the prerequisites, right? It's some sort of field service time.
Yeah, because I know that some of the stakeholders, Sion, for instance, has a course that involves on-site and classroom, and that's sort of an advanced building science combined with construction certification. So there may, and Yes Tomorrow may have similar things. So there are trainers that have those, and those would likely be more advanced trainings beyond the basic.
It's a nice segue into circuit riders, but Peter?
Go ahead, please.
Oh, it's just the next item is the development of circuit rider.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So who's going to administer the test and who's going to receive the certification fee?
So that's yet to be determined, and that's really going to be driven by OPR where they want to go. But some of the concepts that are on the table for building science, the National Organization Building Performance Institute, BPI, they do that currently. They do it across the country. They do it for all of the weatherization assistance programs and utility programs. So they sort of have a national system.
You would look to somebody like that to do it.
You would point to that.
Right.
For the RBs one, it would likely be the International Codes Council. So they administer, they write all the model codes for the country, but they also do trainings and certification process. They have a whole platform that's set up. So instead of starting something from scratch here, we'll point to them.
Okay. Yeah. So I think, understanding, what their program is and what their costs are would be helpful for us.
Yes, no, this is all a work in progress, and we'll be bringing this back.
Gotcha. Good,
Yeah.
thanks.
So to your point, Senator, about on-site assistance, as part of the DOE grant and working towards this item C2, we do have plans for a circuit rider with on-site technical assistance over the next couple of years. So EVT is going to be leading that with their building science and code experts. I don't know the numbers offhand, but it's something like a dozen presentations. Don't quote me on these numbers, but a handful of presentations and then many site visits. I can't recall the exact value, but across the 2 budget periods for the project, I think it's, well over 100 anyway. So that's one opportunity for on-site technical assistance to builders. I think we're in the process of fleshing out exactly what that process looks like, but presumably it's some sort of system where, you know, a builder has an outreach platform that they can request circuit rider technical assistance through.
You know, I've seen Matt on job sites and I don't know if Matt,
Matt will be one of the circuit rider.
He'll be a part of it's likely that the circuit rider, we had originally envisioned that it would be a single person.
Yeah.
And I think where we're going is that it will be parts of probably Matt and Spats and, you know, some of the experts who are already in the field and they'll be made available through the grant to support contractors.
it seems like part of the tricky thing is to get someone at the right moment in the construction sequence. Like absolutely, that someone arrives on the day when you're getting ready or you're doing your first set of windows or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that'll be part of the plan. You know, we need to think through how to make sure that builders know that this is something available and encouraging when's the right time. Yeah, good point.
Sounds very exciting, promising, helpful.
Yeah. All right, I'll try and quickly continue here. So training and support for energy consultants. That's something I would say we're still sort of thinking through, at least in terms of the DOE grant, the best way to do that. But part of that is we are working on a plan for energy professionals as it pertains to the energy code in Vermont and something that would go into our DOE energy code administration plan. But I think those are, you know, discussions for this group to consider moving forward too. So, you know, how, when, where do third-party energy professionals fit into this code process? Yeah, so that's the update there. I don't know that I can speak to C4 or 5.
So I think, you know, we mentioned the incorporating, so seeing increase in coordinate building science and energy code trainings, including weatherization. Well, the building science piece, I think that's, you know, I mentioned the new chapter 2 in the RB's handbook, and then the training to support that will be focused there. Office of Economic Opportunity has this new training center, and they've chosen a contractor, Everblue, who will be administering this and finding actually a physical location in central Vermont as a training center in the near future. So where new construction fits into the existing building focus there is something yet to be determined, I think. I don't know a lot about this besides what I've heard from some stakeholder groups about where the training center.
Do you have anything more, Keith? You were involved.
Well, yes, the scope of the training center is going to be broader than just weatherization, and the name of it is obviously going to change based on that. It's not just going to be weatherization, but beyond that, I can't really be specific.
Yeah.
Codes will hopefully be part of that. I'm going to be pushing for that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so we'll look for opportunities there. Keith?
Is building science like a separate certification from?
Yes.
It is potentially, I guess.
Yeah.
So is that something that OPR should, you know, when they look at certification?
It is, it'll be, I mean, up to Jennifer, but it sounds like there will at least be a building science certification, an RB certification, and then OSHA and maybe construction as well too. So the building science one, I think there's consensus, and Jennifer can speak for herself, but the stakeholders feel like that should be a standalone certification.
Yeah, seems like it.
Jennifer, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Nope, agreed.
Okay, great. So coordinate C5, coordinate the Energy Code Support Center with other code support efforts. And so I think this is an EVT aspect. I don't know, Matt, do you want to speak to this at all? Is there anything you want to say?
I don't think there's anything right now to say. I just think it'll just be part of our engagement in that circuit rider and all the other code work is that we use that call center to inform people who call, and then hopefully we'll drive more people to that call center.
So, and then there's a number of recommendations that came out, focused on increasing awareness of building energy codes and requirements. And I don't know where we're going to go with these, because this sort of takes somebody leading the charge and some budget and some plans. And so it's,
some of this is baked into the DOE grant, so like, we have a training that is going to be at least partially targeted towards lenders, and potentially closing attorneys. We are working with VAPTA to get the word out to municipalities about code changes and their statutory requirements with respect to RBs. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Some of this is sort of baked into the DOE work, although I think we're still fleshing out exactly what the scope of that like awareness campaign might be.
yeah, and yeah, so I don't know of any plans for developing mail out bill stuffers, reminders about energy codes, or radio show.
Right.
Jim, I know Jim's periodically been on the radio. So, any other thoughts or ideas? You know, so besides us just sort of giving an update on what's going on, are there any other things to add? Did you want? And
Not pushy Vermont. I'm just kind of generally thinking ahead to the drafting of the report and legislative recommendations versus recommendations that are not legislative or even governmental at all. And I'm just wondering if we are going to include these non-governmental recommendations, or they are perhaps pushed to the back of the report as secondary comments. But I think these kind of fall in that category.
yeah, they do. They really do, don't they? Yeah.
Well, these were they were all lumped together in the last legislative report.
Right.
They were all kind of put together. We didn't have a prioritization or.
We did have
Separation.
We had a legislative, targeted and not somehow, but they in the end, they're all on the same list. Yeah.
Hey, Jim Bradley?
Yes, the one thing on increasing awareness, I think, is really important. You know, a builder I met with this morning, I was asking him about a building he was building, and I said, which iteration of Arby's are you following? And he couldn't tell me. And I was just asking him, and I gave him a lot of information, talked to him about building science and everything else. And it was a good opportunity, but once again, still didn't know that there was a requirement. So getting that word out there in front of contractors, I just think is hugely important. The same thing, though, on the other side of things, is as I put in the chat earlier, is I still test for other builders who are not necessarily meeting RBs, and not just for air leakage, but other items. They're filling out a form and they turn in the form, and they've got a completed form, but it doesn't mean that the code has been satisfied. There's really not a pass-fail right now or vetting of the certificates that I'm aware of. And I think that that's going to be important, because when the house gets sold 2 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, did it meet code at the time? And was somebody actually able to verify that? It's not just having the certificate that has writing on it, but is it accurate, and did it satisfy the requirements? I think on both of those, that awareness for attorneys to know what they're looking for at closing, and is it a valid certificate, meeting code at the time, and also just making sure that the public knows what to ask for. Like, hey, builder, are you going to be following this? And builder, do you know that this is actually out there and what you should be following right now? And I think that's a really important point that we have to get underneath this to support this whole initiative that we're pursuing here.
I think this is one area where the third-party energy professional engagement could be leveraged. Is that satisfactory to sort of confirm that? Is the involvement of a third-party certified energy professional enough to say that, we verify that this RB certificate is accurate or represents what's found on site versus like a self-certified or self-populated certificate. And I just highlight Jim's point on awareness. I think that's something like I've heard since getting involved in this work 6 months ago, is the awareness issue. And just, you know, that does seem to be an ongoing problem. So, you know, these awareness items are those that are left without a status. And yeah, I guess it's kind of easy to fall by the wayside, but I think it's an important point.
Matt, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think I agree. Awareness is very critical to success. And what I was wondering is if there's any more detail on that you could share on what's being done at the town level or the regional planning commission level, or anything to try to engage community groups, whether it's energy committees or the town government, in assisting in this, because I know it's not common for a energy code to be really talked about at the town level, but really that's an opportune time to do it.
Yeah. I can just say that, yeah, we've been working on a plan for training activities with VAPTA for municipalities. We will be sharing that out with the DOE advisory committee for feedback, but that does include a training for local energy committees. It also includes training for town clerks, among others. And, you know, we've identified a few events that are good opportunities to spread the word to municipalities. So there is some activity there, Matt, and we'll be sharing more detail.
And are there any oversights to the zoning administrators of towns? Like, is there any avenue to talk to get them to pay more attention, or, you know, what kind of work could there be
part
done?
of that outreach efforts. I don't know beyond that. I don't know personally.
Kelly?
There was a pamphlet that Efficiency Vermont put together that we printed up, especially after new codes went into place. And I don't know if you've talked to them, the
The
department.
municipal guide, is that what you're thinking?
No, there was like just a little kind of like, what are energy codes? Because the towns are supposed to give out the
Yeah.
codes when someone applies for a permit, but these were nice, like just small things like
Yeah.
to have sitting there that people could pick up, and the department would be willing to pay to have those printed back up if
Awesome.
you to be able to take to the training. So,
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Kelly.
and then it
There-
has links too, so like people can just get on the link instead of taking a code book or whatever.
Yeah, so part of these trainings is reminding them that they are supposed to be, you know,
Mhm.
providing information about the code when somebody applies for a permit. And those pamphlets sound great. I think in addition to that, there was a municipal guide put together a few years ago
Yeah,
that
right.
we're hoping
Thank
to
you for that, too.
refresh
Mhm.
through the grant.
Act
That
89, I
VAPTA
think.
can also provide,
Great.
which has like the statutory language around some of these.
Let's work on the details, but we're
Yeah,
happy to pitch into that.
Great. So the awareness thing will continue. So let's, you know, any other ideas, let's add those to the list as well. Let's see, so I'm gonna move to,
Oh, you know, it's just, I'll just flag it on my copy. We've talked about this for years, the home energy rating score, you know, like somewhere along the line, that also seems like an awareness piece, like you're buying something, what's the MPG sticker say on that product, you know? And I know that it's a complicated thing because it can promote or interfere with, depending on someone's point of view, a real estate transaction. So people, it's a very sensitive thing. No one wants their house they already own to be labeled a lemon, but, or an energy hog or something like that. But on someone coming in shopping, it can be a plus going the other way. So I know there's a lot of complexity to it, but that seems like one of the moments of awareness seem like they happen when money is changing hands and contracts are being signed, permits are being granted, stuff like that. Like for that moment, there's an opportunity to, people are focused. Something else.
Well, that suggests another avenue for training would be home inspectors. How much do home inspectors know about the existence of RVs and
I think they're on our list of,
Yeah.
So we talk about a bucket of lenders, realtors, home inspectors, and developing a training that could be done at a monthly meeting for 15 minutes or something, at least an awareness sort of approach.
Right. I
And
mean,
then
I think
more in-depth trainings as well, too.
certainly home inspectors can use some training on what to look for and what they're seeing. I had a home inspector in my house, I don't know, 20 or 25 years ago, standing by my boiler, looking over all pipes and asking if this was an air system or a water system. And so,
Is this a furnace?
yeah.
They're quite a bit more professional now. But, so we do have, the speedometer for efficiency here in Montpelier. There's an ordinance that put that in place a couple of years ago. When I talk with brokers that work in this area, they're like, we do it, put it on, as an attachment, but it doesn't seem to be having a big impact. I would say that's more the market, right? Like the market's just been accelerating the last few years. So, if you found a property for sale, that wasn't a critical issue.
Has doors, windows, checks all the boxes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's a tool. I mean, you go on and you kind of plug things in. So, and as far as education goes, I mean, I think that, if somebody were to propose, education for the realtor, group, that, we would, it would be good. We'd have to get OPR to approve an education course, obviously, but pretty sure that they would. And, that's the kind of stuff that we do like to offer to our members. So.
Great. Are you seeing realtors getting sort of green certifications, and that's a marketable skill for them, like it?
It's offered by the National Association of Realtors, right? So, and, many people do have it. I mean, we used to do, a conference with Efficiency Vermont, everybody else every couple of years, and, COVID kind of got away from that. We have been doing typically summer conferences that are more social and some education, but not really focused on this. But, we have meetings, at least, statewide meetings twice a year that, we'd have that opportunity as well.
I remember going to at least one of those conferences, and there was some really good information for realtors.
Yeah, over Lake Lowry, maybe.
I think it was in Killington.
Well, there's one in Lake Killington, there are a couple in Lake Lowry as well, too.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was discussion about green mortgage. Is that what they're called? Green mortgages or something, and other things. That seems like it would be a really good thing to get started again. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, everything's shifting.
Sure, that's right. Work on that.
I don't get involved with this, but if I thought about it, I said, that was, to me, was really a great conference.
Yeah. Good. Well, I'm gonna suggest we keep moving.
I'm gonna curb my enthusiasm.
So we've got a couple sections left here. Establish a plan for funding for base code and above base code compliance. So funding plan, develop a funding plan to pay for startup and ongoing costs to support the authority having jurisdiction and energy code administration. So as part of our grant with DOE is to consider what all this might cost and what an overarching code administration plan for Vermont would look like. So I would say, this is in progress as it states here, and we'll be sharing that out as those pieces come together. Establish a role for the energy efficiency utilities to play in supporting energy code compliance and incentives. So the discussions are underway between the Efficiency Vermont and the other Vermont Gas and Burlington Electric Department and the technical advisory group, TAG, and the Department of Public Service are having these conversations. And so we're hopeful that something will come out of that, where the utilities will can claim some savings or at least be recognized for supporting not only above code construction, but for bringing the base up to code. So we're hopeful that that will move in a positive direction. I'm going to keep going unless there's anything else anyone
It's
wants.
just
Yeah.
to kind of tie some of these points together, I made that comment about third-party verification. To Jim's point, a certificate doesn't mean that that's what was built, where's the verification? If there's funding, help support third-party energy professionals, and there's a system in place to acknowledge that their involvement is some form of verification. This is, I think, how we sort of slowly, incrementally move from just logging certificates to feeling like those inputs on those certificates had some form of, professional verification.
Mhm.
And that would be in like a technical assistance environment, not an enforcement environment necessarily.
So
Ellie has a hand up.
sorry, yeah, Kelly.
I can't remember if this was one of the sub recommendations or not, but didn't we talk about along those lines, like we've had questions from municipalities on whether they have the ability to just require HERS as compliance, kind of getting to that third party verification. And I don't know that we know the answer, and we assume that they had that jurisdiction, but I think we've been told they don't think they have that jurisdiction. So just along like even encouraging or allowing for it, I don't know.
Because there is a town right now that's approached us and saying, can we, it's not up to us, but can they require that the anticipated new construction projects required to be to go through some process or be all electric is what they were talking about. So I don't know that towns have that authority.
I don't know if that's like coming to the legislature to change their particular ordinance, or is there some kind of like general towns can do this? I don't know. I don't know anything about municipal government. But I don't know if that's something to consider in the report.
As a state, and that if it involves a municipal charter change, it has to come back to the legislature for approval. Some towns can do whatever they want unless the state reaches in to change it. This is the other way around, like that permission for everything. And it's a little burdensome, but that's the way we got started 250 years ago.
So the legislature can't just blankly say municipalities have the ability to do X.
Yeah, we can, right, it's a bit of a one-way street. They have to ask permission. We can tell them stuff. So it is helpful.
Hi, this is Samantha with VLCT. I heard part of this discussion, but I missed the question that started it. I'm wondering if I can help.
Sure, please.
Yeah, I was just curious that I couldn't remember if we had a sub and part in one of our recommendations about the department's been asked from certain municipalities whether they're allowed to only require, like Arby's has a variety of compliance paths, and one is home energy ratings, and they were wondering if they could just require that towns built or homes built in their town follow the home energy rating, which would have this like third party kind of component to it to ensure that the homes have met the residential building energy standards.
Yeah, so broadly speaking, I think what so Vermont is a Dillon rule state. So municipalities derive their rulemaking authority and regulatory authority from state law. Currently, municipalities do have the the ability to regulate building decarbonization and building energy code. So some municipalities do have, many municipalities have weatherization standards and rental weatherization standards that they regulate and enforce. And recently, between 2021 and 2023, Burlington sought a unique authority through the charter change process, which was approved in 2023 by the legislature, to go a step further and actually regulate building electrification, including creating a additional fee for non-compliance. And that was approved by the legislature in 23 and then just adopted by the city of Burlington in 24. So now there is also precedence in state and municipal law in Vermont that town and city governments could take it a step further and have that sort of extra level of enforcement through a new tax or fee on non-electrified buildings.
Would towns have to ask permission, or is this blanket approval that towns could point to and implement without asking the legislature?
If they're going for essentially a taxing authority, like Burlington's new ordinance, the building decarbonization ordinance calls it a carbon pollution impact fee. So in that specific municipal ordinance, the result is that for the construction of new commercial buildings over 10,000 square feet and or the replacement of existing heating systems for buildings of that same size, the building owner or developer would have to install an electric system. If they choose to go with a fossil fuel system or a hybrid system, that's fine, they can build that. However, a fee would be assessed on the carbon impact of that new system. So if they went with a natural gas system, a fee would be assessed on that. That would be paid to the city. So Burlington calls it a fee, but essentially that is a new tax authority related to building electrification that Burlington sought through a charter change process. So I'm like really simplifying and I'm not a lawyer. But where it stands now is that municipalities can regulate through code and ordinance various building codes. If they choose to do that, if they're going to seek the authority to have enforcement through a new tax, that would require approval of the legislature through the charter change process.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Can a municipality withhold a building permit unless a new construction project goes through a specific compliance, like a PERS rating? Is that allowed?
I don't think I know enough to answer that question with confidence. What I do know is that some municipalities that have code enforcement, like Burlington, South Burlington, do have a number of requirements attached to building permits, and it is well within their authority to withhold a permit. I think your question may be best directed to like a municipal code enforcement department, and they may know enough to give you a better answer than that.
So we have 3 people with their hands raised. One is Chris Burns, who I'm assuming might want to say something about what was just said. So you might want to start there, and then also Matt Sharp and Jim Bradley.
And then how about if we finish at 12? Can people stay 5 extra minutes?
Yeah,
Yes.
because we don't have to, I think we're done.
Yeah.
Okay, and because I want to make sure we check in on
I'll turn things over.
public comment. Chris?
Yeah, Chris Burns from BED. We do provide technical assistance to the Department of Permitting and Inspections, who is responsible for enforcing the code that was just explained. Just a little more context. So the ordinance does apply to any new construction of any size, residential, commercial. And then it also applies to existing commercial buildings over 50,000 finished square feet. They go in, if they're pulling a permit for replacement of space heating or domestic hot water, they have to go through the code process. For new construction, it applies to space heating, domestic hot water, if it's a restaurant or a hotel with a restaurant, the cooking equipment, and think of a hotel, the laundry equipment. So just wanted to clarify a little bit. Thank you.
Matt and then Jim Bradley. Matt Sharp and Jim Bradley.
Yeah, thank you. I think just wanted to clarify on the HERS path. Just getting a good HERS score does not mean you're complying with the energy code. There are lots of things in the energy code that go beyond what the thermal performance or the heating performance, the HERS score would score. Things like mechanical ventilation, vapor barrier placement, EV charging, amp sizing of service panel. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff. So just getting a HERS rating that's good doesn't mean you're complying with code.
Thank you.
Jim Bradley.
Thank you. Great point, Matt. The other thing too, that what I've seen over the years and what I see currently is that, this idea of a circuit rider or third-party verification has to be really, I think, positioned and leveraged as an opportunity for the trainings in the field, in how important that is if we're going to get to a place of success with this, because with the HERS rating or third-party verification, or even using ResCheck, that you get to prescriptively or projected wise, find out if your building is even going to come close and what you may need to tweak, and then having that person that would come on site and do a preliminary inspection like pre-drywall and be able to help you tweak things or improve things. It's invaluable, instead of coming to the end of the job and finding out that things just do not meet the code requirements, and then that final at the end of the job, being able to go ahead and say, yes, things met it, and be able to reinforce with the contractors and develop that relationship between a rater or third-party person or a circuit rider. Because if there's just one circuit rider with all the buildings that we're projecting to need to be built in the next few years, the homes, the dwelling units, that's a tall order for that person to overcome. So having that mechanism in place, whether it's a HERS rating, whether it's some other third-party verification, really needs to, once again, be leveraged as that training opportunity to help builders better understand what they need to do to get to that level of compliance.
If I could say one more thing, this is Samantha from VLCT. I just want to underscore, so the Burlington example is incredibly innovative and having a great impact on the reduction of carbon emissions from new construction and commercial enterprise in the city. But Burlington is uniquely sort of capitalized in resources through BED and their very robust Department of Permitting and Inspection, which is where code enforcement happens. They also have a number of related local ordinance around rental registration and licensing that interact with these regulations. Most municipalities in Vermont do not have anywhere near the capacity to really even consider these steps. And not to speak for Burlington, although I used to work there, I think relying on, I just heard a point made about considering working with third-party verification. I know even in like the implementation of Burlington's weatherization and rental weatherization ordinances, the sort of lack of workforce to support that has slowed down the implementation and sort of uptake of that work. And so I think many local governments would be sort of resistant to relying on third-party verification that would further slow down the permitting process for building permits.
Okay.
I have one last question that occurred to me about to ask Kelly and maybe Public Service Department generally. I remember there was some issue about whether municipalities had the authority to adopt building codes. Something that was missing in statute or something. You remember this? There was a conversation about this. Was that ever resolved?
Municipalities definitely have the authority to adopt building code.
Well, this was a question that, who's your legislative person again? I mean, not legislative.
Ben,
attorney.
Ben Civility.
Ben, yeah. I thought he brought that up. And I don't remember if it ever got resolved.
I'll
Maybe, you know,
I'll go
you
back
ask
to
him
him.
about
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Thanks.
So thanks for conducting a tour of that, of all these items. Anything else on item 5 to wrap up? And if there's, I sense there's a lot we could talk about here. Maybe there's certain things that will roll over to next meeting as well.
Yeah, there would certainly be some plans discussed next meeting, but is there anything we're missing or gaps or suggestions? And I don't think we have time now, but please send any ideas or suggestions you have to us, and we'll incorporate that in the report.
Okay. And we have one more regular agenda item other than public comment, and that is, so Richard, you said you could just briefly give us an update for item 6, update on data requests.
Yeah, so I think that these items came out of discussions in earlier meeting, and they have been posted on the SharePoint site, which Kelly and Keith had shared out with others. So there's a summary of the values that were used in the LCAR process to justify the passage of the Arby's standard. So those are summarized in a PowerPoint presentation there. Be happy to answer any questions if anybody has those, that they're basically sort of pulled out of and summarized from the LCAR filing. And then as well too, Matt Sharp and his team at Efficiency Vermont did an analysis that looks at the operational costs and savings of moving from baseline new construction to RV's level. And there's a memo that's in there that has some interesting economics about the cost and the savings of moving from baseline code to code levels.
Great, thank you. All right, the system is warning us that we're almost out of time, but I've never seen that before. So, but are there any members of the public that would like to share comments with the working group? And if your mic is muted, make sure, I'm not hearing anything, I'm not seeing any hands go up. Just double checking, we don't want to cut anyone off. All right, so not hearing any. Thank you all. Kelly, when is our next meeting scheduled for, please?
It is,
Yes.
yes,
Right around the corner.
Tuesday, October 22nd, from 1, it's a different time, 1 to 3:30.
Where will it be?
We have it scheduled for here in 9.
Okay, great, on the 22nd. All right, thank you, everyone, for a great discussion, lots of good things cooking along, and see you at the next meeting. Yeah, sure. All right,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're actually making some progress.
Yeah,
aren't we?
it's like there are things happening.
Things happen.
It's encouraging.